Hi everyone, SCUMGANG Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new 6ix9ine record, Dummy Boy. 6ix9ine, or Tekashi 6ix9ine, is a New York rapper who has quickly grown to be one of the most polarizing and controversial figures in the genre today. And I feel like that has so little to do with his actual music. I fear that I'm not going to be talking about the music of this album as much as I would like to, in this review I mean. And the reason I say that is I feel like 6ix9ine's appeal and his continued popularity, very little of it comes down to the quality of his songs. I think you could argue pretty objectively in the grander scheme of trap, outside of 6ix9ine's hyper-aggressive vocals, hyper-aggressive and violent lyrics, and his hyper-aggressive instrumental choices, there's not a whole lot about his songs that are all that special. And in a way, I think he's realized that with how he's tried to change things up and diversify his sound with this new record over here. However, we will get into that deeper into the review. But despite the severe lack of substance in his songs, combined with the fact that since he's gone mainstream, he's kind of boiled his tracks down to the most cliched elements possible, 6ix9ine's stock in the world of hip-hop has risen exponentially. And yes, you could say, Anthony, that's kind of the case for most artists in mainstream hip-hop today. You just oversimplify your sound to the point where you're reaching a larger audience. But very few artists out there today, period, have the extracurriculars that 6ix9ine does, which I think are actually much more integral to his major success. And what I mean by that is 6ix9ine, like no other artist today, can grab a headline with something ridiculous that he said, something stupid that he did, another progression in the ongoing saga of his legal troubles, which now has reached a fever pitch with him and people connected to him being held on racketeering charges right now. Please keep in mind this review is being shot toward the end of November 2018, so I have no way of knowing where 6ix9ine's legal battles are going to develop from here. Another thing that needs to be said in terms of Tekashi 6ix9ine's promotional prowess is that the guy is a one-man meme machine. Everything this guy says and does turns into an online joke, resulting in photoshops and macros and viral video edits. And I will not deny that even though I don't enjoy a great deal of 6ix9ine's music, I love the memes that surround the guy. If a new 6ix9ine track pops up on Spotify, I will most likely listen to that when I have to. Meanwhile, if a new much dank video edit of some interview that he did turns up in my YouTube feed, everything is dropped and I am watching that right now. And that's kind of the beast of the modern internet age and media consumption. You don't even really need to be a fan of something to be consuming something, because a great deal of people who are listening to and watching and reading every single thing Tekashi 6ix9ine is doing are mostly there just to kind of gawk at it. Basically, the man has built himself up to be the biggest freak show in hip-hop today. One that other major artists can't seem to turn away from or ignore despite his ridiculous antics, as Tekashi has landed multiple features from Kanye West and Nicki Minaj on his latest project here. So to kind of wrap this section of the review up in a bow so I can actually talk about the songs on Dummy Boy, I'll say that yes, I definitely think 6ix9ine would not be as popular as he is today were it not for his grating, eccentric, and out-there personality, all the ridiculous stuff he does in interviews, on social media, which gets remixed, shared, edited again and again and again and again. And don't get me wrong, the guy has some catchy songs, the guy has some legitimate hits. But I think if his Day 69 tape showed anything, it is the limitations of making music that is simply in your face and not really much else. And that's one more thing that makes 6ix9ine kind of a unique beast in hip-hop right now. That he is truly, truly a singles artist. Yeah, sure, he has this project, he has the Day 69 mixtape, but honestly, the primary function of 6ix9ine is to just come out with singles. Anything full-length he's put out so far just kind of sounds like a random collection of singles. And every single 6ix9ine has dropped this year has been almost like a cultural event. And in a way, an extension of his internet attention-seeking. The fact that he has a track on this thing featuring Bobby Shmurda on a phone from prison rapping on the cut was never not gonna turn heads, never not gonna make headlines. His track Fifi with Nicki Minaj, which showed an incredible instrumental and vocal change, also a really colorful and sexy music video, was never not gonna turn heads. The fact that Kanye West is on this thing was never not gonna turn heads, and also the fact that 6ix9ine goes like Latin pop on this project with his first big single with Anuel AA. Not only did this song do incredibly well on the charts, but also seeing 6ix9ine kind of jump into this Latin pop trend was of course going to make waves too. So even though my feelings on these singles have been mixed, some I've liked, some not so much, I have to admit the artistic choices Tekashi has made on these tracks from a marketing standpoint have been pretty genius. However, listening to the entire album now, I can't really say the quality is there. Again, there were a few cuts going into this record that I knew I liked, and a few more that I picked up along the way that I thought were pretty good. The opening track, Stupid, with Bobby Shmurda, is a banger for the ages, with a pretty eccentric beat, a ringing and catchy little synth line. 6ix9ine's flow is loud, it's in your face. Some of his lyrics on this thing seem pretty self-aware and referencing the fact that he is silly, that he's such a viral phenomenon of sorts. The song essentially revolves around his utterance of "stupid," which through multiple viral bits of social media has kind of become his catchphrase in a way, his calling card. It's almost like 6ix9ine's "Let's get it!" I also like the random bits of his flow on this track, the dum 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 dum. Again, sort of adds to the ridiculous and colorful quality of the song. Bobby Shmurda's incorporation into the cut is actually kind of creative. It might have been short, but it added to the track for sure. The track KIKA featuring Tory Lanez is another highlight for me. It's like a tropical trap rager with these fun little steel drum synth lines. Tory Lanez over much of the track is singing this really bold and rubbery vocal line and a ridiculous hook. I do my own stunts, Jackie Chan with it. It's easily one of the most fun moments on the record, and I think one of the few spots where vocally Tory has really stood out to me as far as a feature goes. 6ix9ine's flow on the track, it might not be that different than a lot of what he's recorded up until this point, but I don't know, it's still pretty great. There's just something really groovy and head-bobbing about how he flows on top of a trap instrumental. It's not too basic, it's not too complicated. He finds a nice middle ground and he's right there in the pocket. And just to give you a whiff of the lyrics on this thing, mostly it is violence, it's materialism, it's sex, it's completely tasteless. There's a line on this thing where 6ix9ine says, "Ray Charles, John Cena shit, I can't see the bitch." So that gives you kind of an idea of you know, the dark, nasty attitude, but also slightly humorous that you do get for the vast majority of this record. The aggression, the callousness. One more cut that stood out to me on this thing was Kanga featuring Kanye West, not only for its bustling throwback bling era beat, but also Kanye's performance on this track is ridiculous. His lyrics are like a mix of a highbrow and lowbrow. It's like gold-plated trash. Explaining the appeal of this track is hard because it's so ridiculously out there and bad that it's almost good and great and raw in just how uninhibited it is. I mean, I think you really have to not give a shit about what anyone in the world thinks to record and write Bang 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 and Chicken Wang Bitch. Yeah, I know you love how I put it down, bitch. Admittedly though, when 6ix9ine says that lyric, god damn it, I am here for it. TATI is probably the major last highlight on this record for me, which features a beat from DJ Spin King. Boy Wonder and Q Beats are also on the instrumental as well. It features these weary, sad little, I think, string samples kind of woven into a pretty standard bit of trap percussion. The flows for the most part are kind of recycled from previous tracks. I mean, 6ix9ine even revisits his infamous blicky sticky flow for a little bit. Although at this point when he does it, it's like he knowingly embraces the meme of the whole thing. And yeah, it's meme rap. I'm listening and enjoying meme rap right now. One more thing I will give to this album though is that I like how on the track Wando 6ix9ine has Scott Storch producing a beat. As clueless as 6ix9ine seems most of the time, and maybe his choice to do this wasn't entirely his own, but to have a totally underappreciated legend like Storch on this record, I think in a way does say a lot. The keys and those synth lines on this track are pretty great, but outside of that, I'm not sure who else Storch is working with these days as far as production goes. So, you know, those are kind of the highlights for me on this record, but that's really just a handful of songs. There are 13 tracks on this thing in total, and a great deal of them I don't think are very good. There are a handful of cuts on this thing where 6ix9ine invites on vocal guests and rappers who either give horrible performances or outshine him because the rap style he has taken on that particular track is not very distinct, because when he's not screaming his brains out, 6ix9ine doesn't really bring all that much to the table vocally. I'm talking about cuts like Fifi with Nicki Minaj, where, again, as I've said in the past, 6ix9ine doesn't really stick out on this track. His voice awash in autotune, his kind of pronounced eighth note flow, which reminds me of a track from Corey Feldman's Angelic to the Core for some frickin' reason. Yeah, on this song, he doesn't really have that strong of a presence, and again, this is one of many moments where this is kind of the case. Tekashi, shockingly enough, is easily outshined by Lil Baby on the track TikTok. Even with Lil Baby once again sounding like a poor man's Young Thug impersonator, he still has more flow, more melody, and a bolder vocal presence than 6ix9ine does on his own track. Actually, I would say Lil Baby is pretty much the reason the song is as appealing as it is. The song Waka is one of the shorter tracks on the record at 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and a great deal of the mic time on this song is spent with a Boogie with a Hoodie's awful singing voice. So not only am I listening to a subpar performer for the majority of this song, but 6ix9ine barely has any presence on this track. He's barely here. Sure, he's as loud and as out there and as in your face as possible with a bunch of gunshot sounds kind of backing up a lot of his boom, boom, boom shouts. But as far as lyrics and flow go, this is one of his least interesting performances on the record. 6ix9ine once again forgoes the screamed vocals for something much more toned down on the song Mama with Nicki Minaj and Kanye West, and once again, he is the least standout performer. And on FIFA featuring Gunna, it's like him and the dude are in a competition to see who can sound the most boring. Probably the sleepiest and least fulfilling song on the entire record. The closing track, Dummy, featuring Trife Drew, kind of suffers from the same issue the Boogie track does, just way too short of a song with an awful vocalist taking up way too much of the track. Then there's the matter of the two Latin pop cuts that 6ix9ine works into this record, both of which feature Anuel AA. The first of which, Bebe, dropped earlier this year. I already kind of gave my opinion on this track. 6ix9ine's nasally auto-tuned singing is terrible. It's garbage. It's trash. I mean, the beat isn't bad. I respect the fact that he is singing in Spanish on this song and that he went in this direction stylistically and that it did so well for him, but honestly, it's not that great of a track. Especially with Anuel's vocal performance here and on the next song as well, and I can't say I care for him that much as a vocalist. Like, yeah, he has pitch, he can hold a vocal melody, but he has this really weird, moany, emotionally flat delivery that sounds like he's singing with a mouthful of water and he's trying not to swallow it or spill it at the same time. He just wants to maintain it there in the bottom of his mouth. Oh! I mean, he's easily the better vocalist on both of these songs, don't get me wrong. So in that respect, his singing is not as unbearable to listen to. And to some listeners, he's most likely going to sound like a good singer because he's literally being put up against vocal trash. But honestly, to my ears, there's not really anything all that redeeming about listening to these two tracks just locked in the middle of this very, very hit and mostly miss album. So yeah, I mean, there are a handful of highlights on this thing. The Kanye features are cool. The beats mostly can be fire, but yeah, the songwriting is not really there. 6ix9ine barely shows up for a lot of these tracks. There are a lot of horrible guests. The whole thing just sounds really low effort, really cobbled together. I sort of take him at this point as just like a social media personality who also happens to make music. I'm feeling a strong 4 to a light 5 on this thing. Transition, have you given this record a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, 6ix9ine, Dummy Boy, forever.